Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining this live on ServiceNow webinar around getting started with AI risk and management and governance, which is one of our live on ServiceNow sessions that we run throughout the year. Apologies to those of you who registered for the previous webinar and we cancelled at the last minute due to some scheduling conflicts and issues. Thank you for making it to the second one. We really appreciate it. It's early in the morning, so people will join as we're going along, but this entire webinar from start to finish will be recorded and available in the ServiceNow community for the benefit of people who can't watch the whole thing if you've got a drop off or you've got other people who want to share this to because you were just so delighted by our great insights today. So, a couple of things to start off with. So, the first thing to note is that we've got plenty of time at the end of this session for Q&A. So, as you're finding questions that arise throughout the webinar, please use the Q&A feature within Zoom. Please don't use the chat to ask questions. It's much easier for us if we're able to look at the Q&A because we can kind of mark what we've answered and ensure that we get our answer to you. Q&A things have a habit of getting in the chat, things have a habit of getting missed. So please make sure to use that where possible. Like I said, on the Live on ServiceNow community website, you'll find a recording of this session, everything that's transpired, so you can go back and make notes. After this event, you will receive a survey. This is designed in order for us to help create the best experiences in Live on ServiceNow webinars. So please don't ignore it. Please take a moment to give some feedback on the session, good or bad, where you can. So kind of last bit of kind of corporate stuff from here, then we'll move on to the actual meat on the bones. This is our kind of standard safe harbor statement. If you've been on a ServiceNow webinar or been to one of our talks, you'll probably seen this before. Please don't make any purchasing decisions based on what you see today. We may discuss some forward-looking concepts and themes that aren't currently in the product. For the full information on everything that's in the product, you can use our product documentation to understand exactly where we are. But the good news is today, most of the stuff we'll be talking about is live, and one of the features available to you as a ServiceNow customer or implementer very much today. So you'll see all the lovely smiley faces you have on the screen this Friday morning. I'm one of them. My name is Scott Gamble, and I work within our AI Success at Scale team. My job is to help you as customers and partners and anyone who really implements our product get it right first time through implementation insights and leading guidance. One of the resources available to you today in the Zoom chat will be our AI Control Tower implementation guide, which has been put together by my team to help you have success with implementing the product. I'm joined by two of my esteemed colleagues from Digital Clarity, one of our partners, who have come to help me today talk about some of the concepts around AI and risk management and governance. And I've got Alan and Keith. So Alan, I'll hand over to you for a brief intro.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. So Alan Coates, I'm Technical Director at Digital Clarity. Been working in the ServiceNow ecosystem for probably about 15 years now. Tends to be focused on a lot of complex technical things. So I think today we're kind of going to touch less on the technical and more on the kind of practical and strategic stuff. So hopefully this is of some use to people today.
Thanks, Alan. And Keith.
Hi, everyone. Keith Palmer-Hughes. I'm a principal consultant with Digital Clarity. Spent over 20 years in IT, mainly focused on service management, service integration. Today, I'll be helping with any questions that you have on the product. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Keith. Great to have you along today. One last thing from me on the Live on ServiceNow webinars. There's loads of them, right? So you would have got a notification around this one through community. There's a schedule of loads of great events. There's an event later on today, specifically in the US time zones later on in the evening, which is going to cover AI Control Tower, how to kind of practically do something in the platform, like looking at the risk of an agent. So there's one happening today on this very much subject. However, there's hundreds of great sessions going on. We're going to send the link round after this chat, but if you can't wait, use the QR code that's on the screen now, and it'll take you through to the Live on ServiceNow events page, where you can find more events like this. So I'm going to touch on the agenda today, what you should expect from today's session. Again, thank you for taking some time out on your Friday morning to help us. Normally, this is the catch up with emails day for me, so I appreciate you making the time. So we're going to talk about two kind of key areas here around AI Control Tower and managing risk, the theory and the practice. So in the theory, we're going to talk a lot about why AI risk management is important and how it's an explosive area that's exponentially increasing, not only the requirements, but also what's expected of companies as we see increasing press coverage on what's going well and what's not going so well with AI in the enterprise. We'll talk about some of those key concepts in the theory to think about and the key AI risks and challenges that we're seeing, as we develop this product, as we develop our platform, and as we talk to customers like you who are implementing and seeing kind of the challenges with AI firsthand. We'll then talk more about practice, and Alan's going to take you through a bit more information about specifically how our product AI Control Tower works and how it can help you operationalize AI governance within the ServiceNow platform. We'll talk about some practical things as well, like best practices and takeaways that you can take away and use today. So you walk away with something useful that you can use to help kind of direct where your platform goes from now on. So firstly, we need to talk about why this area is so important and why the area of AI governance is exploding. Many of you will be aware of a lot of this context, and I think we're really just kind of trying to hit home the fact that it's a common theme, right? So what you're seeing on your organizations, you're very likely, we're seeing across everywhere. So the first place to start really is with a platform context. So let's talk about the ServiceNow AI platform. We were proud to launch the Net ServiceNow AI platform at Knowledge this year as our kind of rebranding, but also our evolution of the core platform capabilities that we've seen. Throughout the history of ServiceNow as a product, the platform has supported a number of different workflow solutions, lots of business solutions, and of course, your creator solutions will help you to build your own. But really, we're evolving this model to meet this kind of AI everywhere philosophy that we're seeing coming into the world of technology and into enterprises. So the ServiceNow platform is a single platform that's ready for anything, and we're here to support any industry, whether that be kind of our core tenants we've done before, or looking into public services, legal services, etc. Any AI. So you need a single control tower in order to be able to govern, manage, optimize all AI initiatives. So whether that's native to ServiceNow or third party in different platforms across your enterprise. Any data. So we need to see a single data model that helps connect, understand, and take action on data across any application. Again, within ServiceNow's platform, but outside of that too. The concept of bringing AI into your organization is going to vary depending on your org, but you'll see some companies bringing it in for different providers all over the place. Some will be using a single supplier for a lot of the AI capabilities. Either way, you need to be able to manage that, whether it's in the ServiceNow platform or not. Any workflow, right? We're a workflow company. That's how we started. We grew out of delivering solutions for the IT workflows, and as we now expand further into CRM and human resources and creator workflows like app dev, we're going to need to be able to do that more and better and quicker. Any cloud. Most companies, I would say nowadays that I visit and speak to are operating in a multi-cloud environment. Still a lot of on-prem capabilities and a lot of edge computing as well. So we're seeing returns back to the data center as well for some organizations. We need to be able to help you support that, whether you're public cloud, private cloud, or hybrid. You need to be able to have that visibility in that control tower across everything. And any system. We need to have a single platform to integrate and orchestrate workflows in any system in your enterprise. So the foundation, has been there a long time, but we're now building on top to react to what the industry needs as we move towards AI. So why do we need AI risk management and governance? No doubt you would have seen a number of news articles out there around how AI is helping, but also causing PR nightmares for some organizations. We've got a few more quotes a bit later on in the deck, but it's really important that we understand that while AI offers huge benefits, which you'll be starting to realize in your organization now, it also comes with unique risks, and without proper oversight, AI systems can behave unpredictably or unfairly. For example, we've seen AI models that inadvertently discriminate or make biased decisions. Governance is about ensuring that safety, fairness, and transparency within AI. And it's crucial for maintaining trust amongst customers, but it's also important to have trust with your employees and other stakeholders within your business. There's also a strong compliance aspect, right? If we look at new regulations like the EU's AI Act, they're emerging, meeting organizations, and we have to proactively manage and document that accountability. In essence, effective AI risk management protects your business value, but it also protects reputation as well, right? By preventing AI related failures or ethical lapses before they occur. And that sets the foundation for responsible AI. And responsible AI allows you to innovate with confidence rather than that fear of the unknown, right? The fear is as we innovate, maybe these challenges are going to come up we're not aware of. But by being proactive with that, we can try and prevent those issues before they occur. So let's clarify two core concepts that we have. So we've got risk management and we've got AI governance. Traditional risk management is well known, right? Many of you on this call will be very familiar with it and be doing it day to day now, systematically identifying potential risks, evaluating their likelihood and the potential impact to your organization, and then kind of mitigating or monitoring them through countermeasures. Now, when we apply this to AI, we're essentially performing risk management for AI systems. So, for example, we might be looking at evaluating the risk of an AI model that's making incorrect decisions or leaking sensitive data and deciding how to control those risks. On the other hand, AI governance refers to that broader framework. So if you think about the policies and the ethical guidelines that are going to direct how you develop and use AI within your org, think of governance as setting the rules of the road. So, for example, it would define principles like fairness, accountability, transparency. Might establish some sort of oversight committee that you might have as well, or policies on AI use. But in practice, you're going to need both, right? So governance sets the direction. I don't know, you could, for example, say we're going to commit only to deploy AI that's unbiased and secure. And risk management is that day-to-day process that enforces that. So assessing models for bias, putting controls in place, monitoring outcomes, etc. And together, they're going to ensure that AI in your organization is both responsible but also well managed. So, talking a little bit more about some key definitions here, I think it's important that we talk about, because I've already touched on what things like AI systems and concepts like models. Let's specifically talk a little bit more about what they mean. So, an AI system is the AI powered solution that delivers that business outcome. So, if you think about the purpose, the version, the owner, related models, data sets, prompts, all that kind of stuff goes into that. A good example of something like that would be credit scoring, maybe for loan approvals if you're in a financial services organization. So the AI system is going to do that scoring and it's going to do that approval process, right? It's going to take that life cycle. An AI model, on the other hand, is a predictive engine or an algorithm, and that's trained on the data to perform a task. So if you think about an LLM, you've got things like OpenAI's ChatGPT, which is a front end for the back end LLM. You've got things like Azure OpenAI for text analysis. Our own skills that we have within things like summarization will use particular models. So our incident summarization, our task summarization, task uses a particular model in order to be able to perform its workflow, perform its task. AI data sets, so the collection of the data that's used to train, test, and validate that model. If you think about the earliest neural networks and how they were built on huge dictionaries of libraries of pictures, etc., to help identify different things. Um, from a data set, think about things like anonymized customer financial info, for example, from the last few years or something like that might go into your data, CMDB information, that kind of stuff. And then prompts. So the specific instruction or the question that you're going to give to the AI in order to guide its response. So the model requires a prompt in order to deliver on it, and usually that's in natural human language. So you might, for example, say, I want you to summarize a transcript of a call into 3 bullet points that highlights customer sentiment. And that might be an example of a prompt you might use. You might use a prompt like, can you summarize all related tasks for this task in the last few years and let me know what the solution was. So there's lots of different available prompts, and we're seeing increased use of things from threatening actors like prompt engineering and injection that cause challenges today and risks that will probably already exist in your risk register. So when we're thinking about some of those risks and challenges, here are a few examples of some of those that we need to watch out for. Things like bias and fairness. So AI systems inadvertently perpetuate bias from the way that they're built. from the training data that's used to the way that people interact with the system, and that's captured. Without governance, those biases might become unchecked. You've got privacy and security risks because we're using so much data to feed and power our AI systems and models. Um, the black box element as well, right? So, when we're thinking about building neural networks, we're able to understand concepts around the weights of those neural networks. We're able to understand roughly how the decision's been made, but we're backflowing that in, right? So there's always this black box element of AI systems where there's a lack of understanding as to how it actually comes to that solution, and we have to watch out for that. Compliance and ethical breaches, increased effort to regulate AI, especially in the EU and other states will follow as well. We're seeing that, it's going to be far more impactful to an organization if they get compliance and ethical breaches as part of what they're doing, and it occurs as part of their org. That is going to cause potential reputation and trust damage. Those two are kind of linked. So, I mean, let's consider what can go wrong if AI isn't properly governed. We've got bias that can give us unfair information, privacy, we've got the black box challenge, and of course, the compliance and ethics that are going to continue to be a big part of what we look at. So this graphic I thought was really quite useful to help understand some of those risks in a bit more detail. So here are a few of those headlines we're talking about. Lots of key, Fortune 500 top organizations here learning about the biggest risks of AI. Some of those risks are known, and a lot of those risks will be discovered by these big organizations first, right? And they will filter down to us. However, we're gonna come up with our own specific industry-based threat vectors and issues that we might have. But 53% of enterprises say AI presents a greater ethical challenge than risk from other emerging technologies. I mean, broadly, through in some sort of reaction or emoji in the chat there, did you agree with that sentiment? Do you disagree? You could thumbs up, thumbs down, you can heart it, whatever you like. But it's good to kind of get a feel from the group on the call. If you feel that it's your biggest threat, I'm just going to watch the emoji stream in now. Um, but what are we all thinking about that is from a reaction perspective? Do we feel that that's the biggest threat? Give us a thumbs up if you feel so, or maybe something else if you don't. Or if you don't know where the emoji button is, that's fine too. 23% of leaders feel their organization's risk management and governance functions are ready to support scaling Gen AI activities. That's not a huge vote of confidence, is it, that we're ready to deal with the tidal wave of changes that are going to occur as a result of these technologies impacting on our workflows. So this is where I'm going to hand over to Alan, who's going to give us a bit more of a deep dive into what we're looking at around Control Tower. Just before we do, briefly, just while Alan's getting ready, I think the key message that we're seeing from our customers as we start embarking on this novel area is that we have this huge division, right, between our innovators within our organization, or I say innovators, that's probably a broad brush term, but the people that are kind of building our content and our products. And every product's a product organization, even if you can't see a direct link to ServiceNow software org, everything you build essentially develops a product. So, from a product side, we want to go faster. Our customers want to go faster. They're seeing a lot of these AI innovations occurring within their home lives, within the technologies they use day to day, and they want to see it at work. But from a risk and compliance and problem management and all that kind of stuff, we have to make sure that we get it right because we know that the risks of the damage. So we're seeing these kind of opposing forces, right? And I think they've existed for a long time if we look at risk management in other areas. But I think that issue is going to become bigger as we move faster and as AI just exponentially increases in capability and speed. And with that, I'm going to stop waffling on now, and you're going to hear the dulcet tones of Alan as he takes you through AI Control Tower in a little bit more detail. Alan, when you're ready, just say next, and I'll move the slides over.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, cool. So, yeah, I mean, that was a really good coverage from Scott. And I think one of the things I see or draw parallels at least from is if anybody ever did DevOps implementations and kind of had that kind of same kind of friction between DevOps teams or product teams and change teams at the time, which is the change teams want to kind of move a bit more slowly and the product teams want to do multiple releases a day. We're kind of looking at a kind of similar issue. So how do we solve it? So how do we bridge the gap between those two, kind of go faster and slow down camps? And this is kind of where the why to the how of the ServiceNow AI control tower comes in. So the best way really to think about it is the kind of sort of single cockpit, I suppose, for AI. So it's one place where we can coordinate the strategy, so our AI strategy, our AI governance, the execution of that, and then the value that we're going to get from all of these AI initiatives. So it's really looking to resolve that core conflict that we're talking about. So providing the guardrails that are allowing us to kind of move fast. So these innovators who want to build these fancy models to move fast, and then we can kind of give the protectors the visibility and control that they need to ensure the safety of those models. So really, we want to be able to press the accelerator, but not take our hands off the steering wheel. Next, please, Scott. So this is kind of visualizing the solution of AI control tower. So it really sits in the middle. So we're not having it as a wall, but it really serves as a bridge and creates a common shared workflow between the two teams on the left and right. So when an AI project is proposed, it moves forward with the evidence and reviews and the necessary approvals, and we can track those all in one single place, which is really critical. So on the left, we'll have the product teams and the business users, and then on the right, the risk, compliance, legal, and all the other governance functions. So what we see for a lot of organizations today is that these two sides are kind of disconnected. So they might have multiple point tools that they're using for these sorts of things, communicating through emails, spreadsheets, meetings, but there's no real single source of truth. And that's really what AI Control Tower is kind of bringing to the table here, which is joining the dots between all of those teams. So really a kind of true system of action that's going to give you those dashboards and workflows which link everything together. And I think one of the key things, I think I was reading something yesterday about the value of AI and companies struggling to get it. And this is one of the big things that AI Control Tower can measure is the value of all of those models and track those in real time. So this is really about just breaking that traffic jam to scale AI with speed and confidence. Next slide, please, Scott. So what do we do with AI Control Tower? So the kind of thing that everybody be familiar with, which is the CMDB. So we've got these 5 foundational pillars which really cover the entire AI journey. So the first part is going to be your AI inventory. So anybody who's ever kind of done a discovery journey is always kind of, we need to be able to see what we've got. So we can't govern what we can't see. So the inventory is going to be the definitive system of record for all of those AI assets that we have. And that could be the system, it could be the model, it can be the data set, it can be the prompts. And then that's all going to be linked back to business applications that they impact. And then we're going to have the AI strategy. So this is about ensuring that we're not, or our AI efforts aren't just random science projects. We want to make sure that we're leveraging the business context really that exists in ServiceNow to make sure that each initiative with AI is linking up with our core enterprise goals. So helping you make a smarter, more impactful decisions. Then we have AI governance. So this is the kind of heart of risk management. It's going to provide the integrated controls, the audit trail for every decision, the compliance assurance, helping you safeguard the enterprise and build trust with both the users and, more importantly, the regulators. So and then we have the AI value, which I just touched upon. So it's not really, and this is a lot of stuff that was in the news yesterday, but it's not enough to just deploy AI. We have to prove that it's worthwhile. So this is going to allow us to track against specific goals. So it could be cost savings, it could be time reduction, it could be revenue growth. And this is going to give us the dashboards to see the progress and demonstrate those tangible business outcomes. And then we have the final pillar, which is the AI execution. So this is really the operationalization of all of those parts. So this is going to automate end-to-end workflows to manage any of those AI systems. So that could be a built in-house system, it could be a third-party system, or it could be native ServiceNow capabilities, such as Now Assist. So this is kind of unifying all of those teams and accelerating that delivery of value. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is quite a busy slide and hasn't rendered particularly well on here, but this is really kind of an overview of all of the capabilities within AI Control Tower, and we can kind of see there's a little kind of tag on each box to tell you what kind of part and what component it does, but it's really the kind of phases that we go through. So, for instance, if we had the HR team who had an idea for an AI chatbot, for example, to help employees with benefits questions, we would kind of play this out in the AI control tower. So we would start with the intake. So they wouldn't just send off an email. They would go to a central portal and submit a request. So we'd have a form, and that's going to collect all the data about that particular AI idea, what data it wants to use, who's it for, and that's going to create the formal trackable record or entry point from the beginning. Then we can have an assess phase. So this is where we kind of, I guess, the workflow automation is really going to come to play. So based on the information that we've got on the form, we can start to do things like look at the data sensitivity of that particular model. So if it contains something like employee PII, we can have pre-configured workflows to automatically trigger. And this can be set to route the request for review to necessary teams like privacy or legal and security. And it's really just then going to act on the rules that we can define in the system. So a lot of this is based on the kind of playbook stuff in ServiceNow, if you've ever seen it. So that kind of process automation piece, and that can be kind of as complex or as simple as needed for the use case. So this is just going to make sure that we've got the right people engaged immediately, and we don't have to do any kind of manual chasing down. Additionally, I should also mention that we also will have in AI Control Towers the AI risk and compliance content. So that's going to be for NIST, AI Risk Management Framework, and the EU AI Act. So that means you can use a lot of those kind of policies and controls immediately without putting loads of time and effort in. So once we move into the assess phase, once we move into the build and test phase, the dev team can start their work, and the control tower is really acting as the central hub for everything. So we're tracking all the technical checks, all the security validations, and if the team need to change something, like using a different data source, we can log that as a formal issue or exception as part of that process. And then before go live, we have our pre-deployment review. So a lot of this may seem somewhat familiar if you've ever been in a DevOps environment. So this is a kind of final checkpoint where we can package up all of the risk reports and testing evidence into a neat summary, and leadership can then get a clear view into whether we do a kind of go or no go decision as part of this. And then after launch, we're in the monitor phase. So this is kind of one of the key parts of the AI Control Tower. So we want to keep an eye on this system as it's in a live environment. So I think, as we've spoken about, we do see that AI is a probabilistic system, so it can change over time as it learns from new inputs and new data. So we want to continually monitor that to make sure that it's behaving the way that it was designed to behave, and that we're not at risk of any kind of weird ethical bias or hallucinations or anything else. And that can be, I guess, if you're starting from a foundational perspective, it's going to be fairly simple, but moving to kind of more advanced use cases, which might be orchestrating the red teaming of these kind of AI models. And I think Azure is building some tools to do those sorts of things. And then all along the whole kind of process, we're always measuring the value of it. So we would build a value template for that particular model, and we would say the things that we want to measure for that particular model. So we might want to track how many calls the chatbot is deflecting from the service desk, for example, what the user feedback is, and therefore proving its ROI. So the whole thing really is just one connected story from idea to value, and really the governance is just baked in every step. So it makes sure that we've got all those checkboxes filled as we go forward. Okay, next, Scott, please. Okay, so we've kind of touched a little bit on the theory, and we've looked at the capabilities of AI Control Tower. So it can be quite a daunting task. So I think the kind of key to approach it is a bit like if you're going to do a CMDB, which is or asset or any of these things in ServiceNow is very much a methodical approach, and we don't really want to do everything at the same time. So we can look at this from kind of two lenses. One being the strategic lens. So what's our strategy around AI, and the other lens is just a more kind of practical lens. How do we kind of get things moving quickly? So before we want to do anything with technology, we kind of need to lay the strategic groundwork. So success with AI governance is as much about people and process as it is about platforms. And this is something I'm sure probably everybody on this call sees. We get a shiny new tool, but we haven't put any of the kind of people and process parts to it. So this is kind of the key part to that. So aligning AI with your core business goals is kind of the first step. So we need that clear why that's going to connect it to that business outcome. So why are we doing it? We don't really want to do expensive science projects just for the sake of AI that aren't going to go anywhere. We want to make sure that this is leading to a clear business outcome. We want clear executive leadership. So a sponsor, which is going to have authority to make decisions and break down the silos. So we've talked about how this spreads across multiple different teams in the business, and bringing those together is not a particularly easy task. So we want that kind of senior leadership to bring that together, and we don't want it isolated just in a kind of IT silo. Cross-functional collaboration. So we want, as I said, representatives from IT, data teams, risk, legal, the business, all in the same table, working from the same playbook. So everybody should be, or the benefit of it is that everybody should be in this kind of same place, working on the same playbook. Existing governance framework. So we shouldn't need to necessarily reinvent the wheel here. Most organizations are going to have a GRC or risk management process already. So the goal here is really to integrate AI governance into those existing structures, not create a whole new isolated bureaucracy. And finally, is to actively build a responsible AI culture, integrate it into existing ServiceNow processes, and be ready to quantify and prove its value with the clear metrics from the start. So we see some organizations are kind of building this out as a kind of starting point and having things like weekly discussions about what they're doing with AI models, and that really helps kind of communicate who's using it, how they're using it, what the kind of good business cases are for it, and just building out that kind of strategic part of the plan. Next slide, please, Scott. Cool. Okay, so once those strategic principles in place, we can move on to kind of more practical things. So the first step is always going to be to stand up the inventory of the AI use cases. So as you can't govern what you can't see, that's kind of the immediate priority, is to get visibility into all of those AI systems. So with AI Control Tower, you can the ServiceNow stuff is just going to be automatically discovered. So that's a fairly easy one. There are APIs to discover things like Azure and AWS, and then there's manual entry as well that would need to be done as part of this, and I'd expect that to expand out over time. Secondly, establishing the clear policies and owners. So like anything in the CMDB and ServiceNow, you want an accountable owner for those assets in the inventory. If everyone's going to own it, then no one's going to own it. So that accountability piece is super important. We want to integrate risk assessments directly into the intake workflows. So we kind of want to prevent the shadow AI by making that formal intake process the easiest path. That's going to ensure that any of the projects are going to get started with that initial risk evaluation, and that will also help with the kind of two-speed process. So you kind of want a low risk fast lane as part of this. Controls and continuous monitoring. So we can't do AI once a year audits, it's going to have to be a dynamic ongoing process that's going to monitor those systems, because it's not enough to kind of check it on a yearly basis, and we need to be fairly responsive to those risks as they're going to emerge. And then fifth, is to define the incident response process for when things go wrong. So we want that feedback loop for continuous improvement as we do it. And I guess the incident response process for AI may be very similar to some of the processes we've already stood up for things like ITSM, but there may be kind of certain nuances that need to be taken into account as part of that. Okay, next slide, please, Scott.
I think, well, we're just waiting for the next slide today. That's a really good point, Alan. I think it sounds to me, it'd be great to get your perspective on this. It sounds to me a lot like we're just talking about reusing a lot of the practices we already have within muscles within the organization, but we're just going to have to do it a hell of a lot quicker, right? Would that be a fair assessment?
I think so, yeah. I mean, if you look back and whenever the first GPT was released, it wasn't very long ago. And the kind of aggressive speed that AI is being deployed everywhere is pretty terrifying. It's fairly more terrifying the older you are, I think. So as we try and wrap our heads around it, so yeah, I think trying to get your hands around it now is gonna pay huge dividends in the future. So I think the companies that experimented loads with AI aren't necessarily going to be the ones that win the game. It'll be the ones that manage to kind of get their arms around it from a governance perspective, because they're going to scale better. If it's just going to be, lots of AIs all over the place, that's not going to help anybody. But having that framework in place to start with is just good foundations, and you can just build on those foundations from there. And that's the challenge, I guess, and that you could mirror that probably across a lot of different things. Okay. All right. So lessons learned, I guess, are patterns that we can kind of apply immediately inside the control tower. And these, I guess, for a lot of people on the call, these may seem fairly obvious, but you'd be surprised how often we don't see these things being executed. So the first is really establish the governance framework first. So the tool really is there to enforce rules. It's not going to create them for you. So if we have a sales team thinking about deploying a new AI forecasting tool, the governance committee should have already defined a policy stating that any AI using customer data requires a privacy review, and that its accuracy has to be reevaluated every quarter. So that's really the framework, and that needs to be in place as a starting point. Secondly, we want to adopt a risk calibrated approach. So really what that means is that we don't have a one size fits all model, because that's just going to kill innovation and put people off, and people are just not going to adhere to the process. If you make things difficult for people, they're just going to avoid. So if you had a simple internal AI tool for summarizing, let's say, incident notes, that's going to be pretty low risk. So it may only require like a project lead to complete a self-assessment checklist. But a customer-facing AI system for credit scoring, for example, that's going to be a lot higher risk. So that's going to automatically trigger a mandatory kind of multi-stage review involving legal compliance and then maybe a formal bias audit. So you can have the same company and you can have different levels of governance based on risk. So, and a lot of that is how we gather that information as part of that intake process. Thirdly, we want to build the trust through collaborative partnerships. So the governance team needs to be the strategic partner. So we don't want it to be kind of perceived as the department of no. We just want it to, we don't want it to reject things like proposals for a new AI tool because it's too risky. We want it to be more collaborative. So it might be hosting workshops around them. And we might say, well, this thing has risk, but we can work together to design a safer, more compliant alternative that's going to kind of meet those business goals. So it kind of goes back to one of the other slides where it's building bridges, not walls. Fourthly, champion the unified governance mindset. So breaking down silos is often a kind of quotable phrase, I suppose. But before, your data science team have kind of tracked their models in a spreadsheet, and the GRC team might track their models in some kind of point tool. We want to bring all of that data together so everybody can basically work from that single system of record. And everybody kind of knows where that data sits, what the process is, what kind of risk assessments we're going to go through, and everything's kind of linked together so we can easily see that kind of linked picture. I think a lot of the inefficiencies that we see in organizations are because of the chunkiness of those tools, or we've got one department using one thing, one department using another, and the amount of drag that creates for organizations is massive. Okay, next slide. Okay, so am I on the right one? Yes. Okay, so we're kind of repeating some of the stuff, but I think it's important. So the first part from an operational perspective is the comprehensive AI inventory. So visibility being the foundation. It's the same with IT. It's the same with everything else. We need to know what we have. Secondly, we want to automate the risk tiered intake and approval. So we want to make sure that our kind of process is based on risk. So we want to make it as easy as possible. So if we have an intake form with a simple checkbox for handles customer PII data, we can automatically assign parallel approval tasks to head of data privacy and the CISO, and they can all get notified at the same time. So it's doing things like that, designing that process to make sure it's super easy for the low risk stuff, and then for the higher risk stuff, we're making sure that we've got the checks in place. Continuous real-time monitoring. So I think that's one of the things where AI is kind of slightly different, is that it can change over time. It's that kind of dynamism of it. And I think it's early stages, I think, for kind of real-time monitoring of AI models, but we should see a lot more point tools for this sort of thing, I think, in the future. But that's something that we need to be checking. So if you want to know if you've got an external customer-facing model that's somehow developed bias, we need to be monitoring that on a regular basis. Embedding visible control for human oversight. So a lot of this is making sure that people are aware that things are AI. So if we're doing case summaries, for example, it should clearly be labeled as AI generated. The agent should also have things like a simple one-click button to flag inaccurate summaries. So that kind of creates a kind of human, always in the loop type system, so we can correct errors and give feedback. And we also have risk and compliance views in AI Control Tower, so we can look at the two different frameworks that are provided, so NIST AI RMF and the EU AI Act, so we can drill down into those from the compliance score for any specific control, and all the way down to the underlying issue. So I think AI Control Tower really gives you that kind of evidence trail of what you need from intake all the way to the end. Okay, next slide, please, Scott. Just checking time. Okay, so just to bring it all together, we can have like 5, I guess, practical, actionable tips that are kind of easy and effective and work in the field at the moment. So, as we said, visibility before you try to apply control. So we need to get a picture of all the things that we have before we try to put any controls around them. And it might be a fairly tricky thing to do because you probably have no idea where a lot of these models are being used. And it could be things that are taking meeting notes all the way to chatbots that have been deployed and everything else. So that's kind of the first thing. We don't want to spend months designing complex workflows for everything until we have a good picture of what we actually have in the first place. Secondly, assigning a clear owner for everything. So we want to make sure that all of our assets have a clear owner. So we have someone responsible for them. So if everyone owns it, no one owns it. So we want to make sure that we have named people associated to those particular assets in our inventory. Third tip is create a low risk fast lane. So I've kind of said this multiple times, but we want to create a simple risk tiered intake process so it creates lightweight, fast track approval for genuinely low risk initiatives. So internal facing tools that aren't using sensitive data. And that just makes it an easier process for people to kind of get into. So you don't want to put resistance in. The more resistance is, the less people are likely to adhere to the process. So it just needs to be, easy to use, easy to get an entry point in. So we don't want cumbersome governance. Next slide, please, Scott. Okay, so I think I mentioned somewhat about the process automation stuff in AI Control Tower. So we have the playbooks. We can just activate automatically trigger playbooks whenever a new AI asset is registered. So that's just going to allow you to trigger the right workflows to make sure that everything's kind of in place from day one. We don't want to rely on manual processes as part of this. There's going to be a lot of kind of steps involved. The more we can make ServiceNow do, the better. The more automation we can put in, the better. Next slide, please, Scott. Oh, you've gone one too far. So finally, I guess the fifth one is just having the rules talk before the tools talk. So we want to gather our cross-functional teams for simple workshops, and we just want to agree on that first basic version of the AI policies and what the risk appetite is going to be. So the control tower is super powerful tool, and that's going to do all the rule enforcing for you, but it's not going to create the rules for you. So that's kind of the kind of fifth and final one. And we don't want that to be in an IT silo, and that's kind of one of the other key elements to this. Okay, so just a quick word on how we help. So we support organizations across the entire journey. So digital clarity is really made up of a lot of kind of seasoned or I don't know a nicer way to put that, but seasoned guys who like to solve complex problems. So we work across strategy, implementation, app delivery, AI, and automation, and optimization. So that could be anything from kind of operating model design to enterprise service management to platform deployments, from governed AI use cases and orchestration to CMDB, CSDM, and asset governance. So our general common thread is pragmatism. We try to help people ship value quickly and put guardrails in place to scale safely. So if anybody fancies having a chat about anything in AI Control Tower or anything else, feel free to drop me an email, and we can have a virtual coffee and kind of map out what your first 90 days looks like. I guess additionally, if anybody would like to do deeper dives on the actual tool itself, we could facilitate demos for certain things. So whether that's kind of AI discovery or anything else, to kind of talk through things in a kind of deeper depth, because I do appreciate this has been more of a kind of foundational touch on AI risk and governance, but there's obviously a lot more under the surface. Okay, back to you, Scott, I think.
Thanks, Alan, for that great overview. I think there's a lot of really complex topics here, and it's easy to think, okay, we've done all this before, we've done risk management before, it's going to be the same. And what we're learning very quickly from this kind of dynamic world is that things are probably never going to be the same for any area within our businesses, least of all managing the risks that come with it. So good to get an in-depth overview. Thank you. Okay, we've got a few minutes left for some questions. Please add them in the Q&A box. I'm actually going to stick a poll up that I was typing out as we were going through the webinar. You may have seen me slightly distracted. I want to kind of get a feel from everyone who's on the call, really, just kind of where you are in your journey as well. Just really trying to understand kind of if you feel like AI risks are still just brand new, this is the first kind of time you're really thinking about it seriously, or whether or not you've got it all done, right? You've figured it all out, you know exactly how you do it, and you're going to give us a webinar so we can improve what we're doing. That would be good as well. But let us know how you feel. While that's loading, I'm just going to kind of talk through a little bit about customer success and how they can help you, how we can help you as an organization with ServiceNow. So you may be impact customers. If you're not, check it out. We have great training and certification in this space, and we're launching a raft of great kind of really high level, but also really in depth for your individual individual contributors training over on ServiceNow University for AI Control Tower. And of course, you've got great standard training for everything. And just a reminder that on-demand training now in ServiceNow University is free of charge. You have to pay for your exams and the in-person stuff, but there's loads of great stuff. And so if you haven't been for a while, please check it out again. And finally, our expert services teams are available on help to provide support where you need also. Right, so I'm going to end the poll now. Thank you for everyone that took part. I don't know, I'm just going to share the results on here so you can see them come up in your Zoom webinar. So, most people at the start of their journey, good to see someone's got it all figured out. Please let Alan and I know how you can help us in the future with learning this process. I'm going to find out who you are, I'm going to be in touch. Most people are early on their journey, right? So either have no idea how to start or building policies at a high level. Again, our trusted partner community, specifically Digital Clarity, have learning and talking to a lot of people in this space, a lot of customers in a similar situation than you. So please reach out to Alan if you want to talk more about that. Please remember, if you've missed any of this webinar, the whole recording will be available. We're also going to send out a load of great stuff afterwards, so you can get in touch with the guys at Digital Clarity and access our resources, etc. So I'm going to say thank you very much to Alan and Keith for being part of the webinar and supporting it, and for your great insights. And thank you very much to everyone who's joined today. And we hope to see you on the next one.